morning and a warm welcome to the time Davos Hub. This is our last day of 4 days of broadcasting up on a mountain, and we're today in the Arctic Basecamp tent. The other 3 days we've been broadcasting outside of the tent, but today it's actually snowing outside. And also we wanted to be inside to sort of showcase what the inside looks like in this Arctic Basecamp tent. And people have been sleeping inside here. The scientists have, and they're also sleeping outside in small. So we're here today. We're going to start this session. We're going to focus on climate solution, exponential climate solutions. And we do that because it's crucial to put them in the forefront, to understand why we need them, and also to, of course, help them accelerate and then do this exponentially. And with me to talk about this, I have 3 guests. 2 of them are with me here in the tent. Johan Falk, you're CEO of Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and also Andrea Webster, head of Finance Systems Transformation at the World Benchmarking Alliance. So terrific to have both of you here with us. And inside this, it's fairly warm, actually. It is fairly warm tent. And with me from Stockholm, we have Johan Mandarich Roinanen, and Johan is Climate Impact Lead at Stegra. And Johan will tell us a little bit later about what Stegra does, if you might not know what Stegra does. So starting with you, Johan Falk, to introduce us to this topic and to this session, what is ERI and why have you decided to focus on solutions, climate solutions?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. Thank you very much. Yes, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. We bring together some of the leading and most disruptive companies in the world with this common mission to halve emissions by 2030 through exponential climate action and solutions. And we are an initiative anchored in science. We were set up 2017 based on the carbon law together with Johan Rockström that we need to cut emissions every decade. Now, we haven't yet bent the curve, even if we are quite close. One reason for that is to be able to shift out the fossil economy. We need to scale up the solutions, and we need to scale them exponentially. And that is the reason why we can't just have focus on the down curves, but also on the up curves and how we can shift them to the left. So we need really laser focus on hyper growth of these climate solutions.
So Johan, please tell us a little about the framework and how does it connect to other standards and other frameworks?
Yeah, now what is important as far as we see it is that we can actually qualify these solutions in a good and independent way. And why is that? Well, they follow another rationale than the big companies. The big companies join, for example, the Science Based Target Initiative and set the target to reduce their emissions. What is the difference? Well, these companies, they need to scale incredibly fast, growing 10, 100,000, etc., which actually means that over a period of time, they also need to raise their own emissions. So they don't really fit in that model. That is the reason why we developed this framework. It's called Climate Solutions Framework, together with Oxford, as well methodology, basically, to be able to qualify such solutions. And to simplify it a bit, what does it really mean to qualify? Well, if we follow this curve of halving every decade, you should be at least 50% under that curve, preferably much lower. So we'll talk with Stegra later on. We'll have steel, which maybe cuts 90% compared to the market average. Then you can basically apply that rule. But it's also important that you follow what we call guardrails, that you actually follow a number of points in terms of your impact on nature and other aspects to really be keep a high integrity. So that's the ground.
Excellent, Johan. Thank you very much. Turning now to Andrea, could you tell us briefly a bit about what the World Benchmarking Alliance does, especially related to this topic of climate solutions?
Thank you. Can I just say it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Always wanted to go to the Arctic on my bucket list, so it's nice to be able to tick that off.
There you go.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. And what World Benchmarking Alliance does is very complementary to what Johan has just described. World Benchmark Alliance, we're a non-profit organization, we're independent, and we benchmark the top 2,000 companies and institutions that we think are critical for the system level change that's needed to support the type of change, obviously, that you're speaking to in terms of pushing that curve in the right direction. To put it into perspective, those 2,000 companies equate to their revenue equates to about a third of global GDP, and they employ directly up to nearly 100 million people and many more indirectly. So we know that if we can change the behavior of those, then that will drive system level change through. From a climate solutions perspective, we look at these companies through different lenses. We have 7 systems identified. We do have a track on decarbonisation and heavy industry. The track that I lead is on the finance system, actually, which kind of envelops all of them, because we know that finance is absolutely critical. It's the straitjacket of business and also the enabler of it. So the connection between finance and climate is critical. And I think key, just the point that you've made of these commitments that are made by businesses, basically what we do is assess them and see if they're doing what they say they're doing. We want to cheerlead the leaders, champion those best practices to scale them. And we do also want to be a critical friend to those that are laggards.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Andrea. Let's turn to Johan Mandarich Reunernen in Stockholm. You're in our studio in Stockholm. So Johan, please tell us about Stegra briefly, and also why you joined the work with the Exponential Roadmap Initiative with the climate solutions.
Sure, thank you. So, I mean, we got a bit of an introduction from Johan when it comes to Stegra, but I'll do the full version maybe. So Stegra was founded in 2020, and our purpose is to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries. And we're starting with steel, as steel is one of the dirtiest industries out there, accounting for roughly 7 to 8% of the global emissions. And a bit over a year ago, we closed our financing for our first plant in Boden in northern Sweden. So it's a bit of an Arctic climate up there as well, which is currently under construction. And up there, we're building 3 pretty distinct technological platforms. It's green hydrogen, green iron, and green steel. And we will produce and deliver our first coils of green steel next year in 2026. And that steel will be able to reduce CO2 emissions up to 95% compared to conventional fossil steel. And an important part of the financing, we have pre-sold over 60% of the volumes from the Boden plant, really showing that it is possible to sell green steel in the market and get a green premium for those products. And some of you may know us as H2 Green Steel. We started off as H2 Green Steel, but we changed our name and our brand to really reflect a broader ambition to Stegra as of September last year. Because we won't only be selling green steel, we'll be selling green iron as well, and hopefully other applications of green hydrogen when it comes to decarbonization.
Thank you very much indeed, Johan, from Stockholm. Looked like you were here with us in Davos with that backdrop, but it's actually not. So turning now to, we're going to open up the discussion to all of us, but I'd like to just angle the first question to you, Johan Falk. We know we need to cut emissions dramatically, and you talk about exponential, well, also to bring out growth of scaling and acceleration. And what is the role of solutions in this mix, please?
Yeah, as I highlighted previously, a lot of, well, let's start with all the key chains. We talk about, food and land. We talk about transportation. We talk about mobility. We talk about energy. All these will be transformed. So we're talking about not just cutting emissions by 50%, but actually going to 90%, zero, going to regenerative should be the long term. So by the way, we shouldn't stop with net zero, but we should take it in steps. So that is a starting point. And that requires tremendous innovation, new type of solutions. So I think that dynamic between some of the larger companies and the new exponential solutions innovation companies is extremely important. And that is the reason why we're onboarding the combination of these, because they will be able to do the cut-throughs. You need to bring in a lot of new innovation in these value chains to make these radical shifts. And so far, I would also like to say that the focus has been very much on the energy transformation. And we know that all our big companies are working on push suppliers towards renewable energy and investing upstream in the value chain, potentially also downstream. That's reasonably well known, I would say. But where is the second part to be able to take the second and the third cut and halving is about materials to a large extent. So we need to have the same focus on going from a linear to a circular economy as well. So these are a number of major points why it's so incredibly important. And we need new actors to come into the value chains and really drive that change in combination with the most progressive big companies. I think the rest will disappear. I think we will shift out a lot of the current companies that we see on the market today.
Thank you very much, Johan.
Yeah.
Turning now to Johan in Stockholm. Stegra was one of the first companies that actually joined using the framework. Could you tell us a bit about why you did this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess to start off, we have been members of Exponential Roadmap Initiative for a few years now, from pretty much the very beginning of the HRGS/Stegra journey, showing that we are part of Race to Zero. A lot of our investors were asking about SBTI. Why haven't you committed to SBTI? And we can't, because we're not in production, and we don't see the value for us in setting absolute emissions targets. And so we wanted to join Exponential Roadmap Initiative, but we didn't want to stay there only showing our commitments to, having our emissions every decade and reaching net zero in 2040. We wanted to show that our products from the very start are really challenging the status quo of the market, and they are needed for a lot of other companies out there, as Johan mentioned, to decarbonize, their supply chains. And a lot of our customers are big companies, these progressive big companies that Johan just mentioned. For example, the OEMs that are working hard to cut their emissions to reach their ambitious climate targets. And so one of the biggest drivers actually for our commercial offtake is SBTI, but since we can't fit into that framework, that would just hamper our development, really. We need to be able to scale exponentially. We wanted to be able to set intensity targets for our emissions. And so when we look at the climate solutions work with the minimum 50% reduction and the minimum of 90% of our revenues coming from those products, we see that, well, this is a great fit, because we will reduce emissions 90 to 95% from the steel, and that's the only thing that we sell. We only have green products in our product portfolio, so 100% of the revenues come from there. And of course, not to mention then the guardrails that do no significant harm. I don't know how many times this project has been scrutinized by our investors. We have a lot of critical friends, as you said, Andrea. I think that was a great way of putting it. And we chose to qualify as a climate solutions company to really hold ourselves accountable, to be part of advocating for a framework we really think is needed as a balance to SBTI if we're to collectively succeed with the transformation of these hard to abate industries, to decarbonize them. We need both. We need both worlds. And we also want to inspire other companies to walk the same path and set a new standard for green tech startups.
Well, thank you very much. We need front runners like you, like Stegra. Really, thank you. So turning now to Andrea, what is the importance of the framework and sort of the climate solutions definition? We have benchmarks and frameworks like CSF. what role do they play in this acceleration of investments? Because that's really your topic, the financing here.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe if I can provide a little bit of backstory for your viewers of what's happened and why those frameworks is important now. There's obviously the big push and the commitments that are made to net zero. And I think what happened originally is business and finance moved faster than the regulators. So you saw money pushing into products and companies raising money for climate solutions. There were some good players in there. There were those that were working out as they went, and perhaps there were those that were less scrupulous. And so, it's the benefit of hindsight, but obviously that created all the angst that we've had over greenwashing. Yeah. Regulations caught up, as we now know. And so the whole industry, the business sector, investors are all kind of repositioning and maneuvering, and they need a common framework, a common anchor around. And in terms, I think, for investors, institutional investors in particular, there's a real commitment there to push money into climate solutions, but there is also a nervousness from a compliance perspective, and obviously the increasing risk of litigation, climate litigation, is significant. I'm also, there's one comment that I'm just going to throw in here, because I would like to bring the elephant in the room into this discussion. I think it would be remiss of us not to, as the politics. And we're here in Davos, the backdrop and headlines of the fact that they're going to have a rollback on commitments from climate solutions, and we have the net zero alliances that are either kind of disappearing or on pause. But what I hear across the senior management in the financial institutions is those commitments to getting money into climate solutions remains. And ourselves and the other rest of the nonprofit will be supporting those institutions in doing so. So coming back to the need for frameworks, those are absolutely critical to give investors confidence that money is going into the right, pushing and having the right outcomes. I think it'd be really interesting, Tony, if we have time, to talk about the positioning and the narrative of those frameworks into the environment that we're going into to open up money for investors.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Sounds like you're slightly hopeful for the conversations here at WEF. Is that right?
I'm an eternal optimist, I have to
eternal
say.
Optimist.
That's why I get out of bed in the morning, because I believe there is a lot of work to be done. We've just benchmarked the top 400 financial institutions. So that's 150 banks, 90 asset owners, so sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, 90 asset managers, and 80 insurers. And the numbers on it are woeful on transition planning. We can see some positive numbers in terms of executive and board level commitment, so 60%. But in terms of transition planning, only 3% of those institutions actually have plans in place. And I think a lot of those is they need the pathways and the frameworks to push forward on it. We will be pushing the industry. There's a lot to be done, but I hear commitment.
Excellent. So stay with you, Andrea. In terms of barriers to get more finance into the right direction, running into the right direction, what can you say about barriers? What do you need to do to remove them, and which are the major barriers?
Okay, there's not one answer to all of it. We know the funding, I think that the annual funding needs are estimated at $7 trillion a year for the climate transition. I've given this some thought. There's a lot of known barriers, obviously, in terms of the business model, cost. And then for me, the big one is the geography, where you're sitting in Stockholm in Sweden. You've got a supportive political backdrop for this, but the net zero race is going to be won and lost in emerging markets. I think that by 2030, half of energy use is in Asia. Those hard markets. So the big barriers is getting money into those markets. So some of the political willpower in there. We need businesses and those that have solutions to push governments to support really ambitious NDCs, advocacy to show that there are the innovation, their tools are available for those governments to show the commitment to push money into it. And we need institutional investors to get behind it as well. That's the kind of the big ones that spring to mind. But obviously, I think pushing that combination between the solution that Johan's talking about, pushing them through government and getting investment behind it.
Thank you, Andrea. Johan Falk, what is your take on the barriers and also the connection to what you're doing to remove them?
Well, just to emphasize that the Exponential Roadmap Initiative companies, they stay on course. They stay on course. We have some turbulence now. Really important.
And just to note, how many companies is it now?
We have 60 or something like that.
Good to know.
But it's a mix of bigger and small companies. We stay on course. That's incredibly important. It's important not to get distracted. Move forward. The transition will happen. So, but it requires a lot of more, smart collaboration between the parties in the front line. So two things to point out. The first thing is that around the narrative. Yes, it's much more now about business and solutions, and actually that these transition plans, which we're talking about and what we are working with all the big companies, the solution companies should also have a transition plan, but that is basically a growth plan within the guardrails, which not so many people have talked about, but that's basically the exponential growth plan. Could also be a transition plan. It's really important now to get the link to the nations and the cities we're working on and that you are working on.
Andrea mentioned the NDC.
Yeah, the national determined contributions, because we need to have the demand signals in terms of the right supply and demand policy, and make this into an opportunity for countries and cities, not primarily to cut emissions, but just primarily about winning the economy, because we shift out 90% of the economy. So it's a tremendous opportunity for the countries, for the cities in the front line. We have to move it from a discussion of, fulfilling the requirements on carbon towards actually winning the new economy. And that is why the solution companies are so important. So I prefer not only talk about climate solutions, it could be exponential solutions, by the way.
Totally agree. And if I could just respond to that. Obviously, we're relevant and we're talking about climate solutions in the context of this conversation, but I think externally, and obviously you hear it in Davos, but actually when you're moving around emerging markets, that economic growth, prosperity for all, and I think climate solutions, that phrase doesn't resonate with many people outside of our world, and so that push of is it energy efficiency to bring down cost of living, is it it is prosperity for all in terms of the infrastructure and building resilient economies, and one of the points I think that when we talk about the technology solution, that the really important part for the narrative now is the just transition, because you're talking about changing an economy. There's an awful lot of people that are going to be frightened, that are going to be left behind. How do we bring that into the conversation to make sure that they feel part of it? And I'm interested where Johan's experience, because you're talking about there's an upskilling that's needed, and where does that fit in terms of job creation and the transition of the old economy to the new, and bringing that in, and that's complex.
We have a few more minutes left, so I want to hear what the Johan Mandrik Runner Nordenen has to say about this.
Well, I guess when it comes to barriers, I think let's not create more barriers. I think, look at the EU. We have the ETS, which will put a price on carbon if we just follow the path that we've kind of staked out, with the phasing out of the free allowances and the phasing in of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. That will put a price on carbon. For the conventional fossil steel, that price will go up, meaning that the cost difference between the brown and the green will not be that much. So it will be easier to sell these green products in the market. And I think we don't want to see any rollbacks on that. So we're hoping that it will stay the course with this commission, Ursula von der Leyen's second term. We really hope that they will.
Thank you very much, Johan. And Johan Falk, just to conclude this session here, what's going to happen with this framework now? What are the next steps, please?
Yeah, we are working with a number of leading companies in the front line, such as Stegra, and a number of other companies to basically implement it practically. But we also broadening the discussion with finance and other factors. This framework is a key building block, but we also connecting it to other frameworks. So the key point is then to achieve a critical mass, as far as I see it, to basically drive this agenda forward, because we don't say that what we are doing is the absolutely right thing, but we put, in the new cornerstone. And we have a lot of fragmentation here. Each financial actor are applying their own assessment networks and so on. So we think to unify and to see how we can move forward, there will be a couple of frameworks in actually this acceleration, but these companies need a third-party validation of that they provide solutions, and also as a solutions company, that is very important. So we'll drive this together with our key actors. We also have a collaboration with World Benchmarking Alliance. That's one example. Yes.
Thank you very much, Johan. I have time for one more question to you, Andrea. What will be your focus in this field, 2025? What are your hopes?
My whole focus is on closing the funding gap for the transition, and working with leading financial institutions that can help channel money into it. We do have an emphasis on emerging markets, because I think that's the hard nut that we've got to crack, and perhaps using some of the experience that's taken place in Europe, taking that out into other regions. My hope is that the leaders in business and finance hold their nerve, and unite and keep pushing forwards despite some of the headwinds against them.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Andrea and Johan, and here in Davos, and Johan in Stockholm, for sharing your insights on this topic. And all of you watching this, please go into our platform, wouldn'thavetime.org. You can interact with other people that are interested in this topic and share your stories, and also, of course, share this broadcast to people that might need to know about what we talked about today. So now we're going to move on. The next session is going to be about it's going to be about a very special award that you might not have heard about before. So please stay with us, stay tuned, and see you soon. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back. Welcome to this session. We're going to talk about green hushing. You're probably familiar with the terminology of green washing, and that is, of course, when deceptive advertising or messaging from companies that do not do what they promise in terms of climate solutions and other sustainability topics. And the temptation to greenwash is, of course, it is very tempting indeed. It's obvious, because environmental practices and also solutions are very, very lucrative and very people want to buy products that have been produced in environmentally friendly ways. But if you stick your neck out and you don't have the what's behind this, really, that's going to be greenwashing. But today we're going to talk about something else. The risk is high, of course, of these unethical practices. But green hushing is it's much less well-known concept, and it means that it's more the mirror opposite of greenwashing. It's companies that really they do good stuff in terms of climate, in terms of sustainability, but for some reason they decide not to go public with it. they hush. They hush their solutions and they hush their work. And although greenwashing is completely unacceptable, it is not really good that we have green hushing, because as we mentioned in the previous panel, solutions, to put solutions forward, is really, really, really important. So now we're going to focus a bit on the green hushing and the consequences of green hushing. And this is actually an awards ceremony. And the Greenhush Award, it aims to get more organizations to communicate, really communicate their positive climate work. And they need to do it in an honest, relevant way, and also in an engaging way. So therefore, we don't have time. Is thrilled to host the Greenhush Award. And Neymar Renskog, the CEO, and my colleague here, we don't have time. You're here to facilitate and help me and talk about this award today. So Ingmar, and also we are joined a line with one of the founders of the prize, named Lina Gustafsson. So Lina, are you with us here in Stockholm? Let's see if I can see you. Yes, is Lina with us? She's with us.
Yes.
Terrific.
Yes. Hi.
There you are. Now I can see you. Wonderful. So Lina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For those that might not know so much about green hushing, and also, of course, the reason why you would have a green hushing award, what could you tell us? Why did you set up this award?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for asking this important question. So the thing with green hush is that it creates a pretty big problem. When people don't get information, or when companies don't communicate their sustainability efforts, we can make less informed, or we will have to make less informed decisions as consumers, right? But also from a branding perspective, or from the company's perspective, the competitiveness and the branding gets a lot weaker. The employer branding too. So it means that companies will have to recruit the right personnel, and this is of course because people care. They want to buy more sustainable products, and they want the transition. A lot of studies shows this, but then we need also to get the right communication and information about it, and that's why greenwash is such a big problem.
So Lina, could you elaborate a bit on the why? Why do companies practice greenwashing?
Well, above all, I think it's because it's not so easy. Maybe you don't have the right competence within the company. You're afraid of getting criticism. You don't want to end up greenwashing, and then it's so much to get right, so maybe you get hesitant instead. But then we have, I mean, the political situation around the world is also right now a bit of a problem here, because it doesn't fully support the sustainability transition, right? Which also makes companies more hesitant in this area.
So Lina, do you have any favorite, might be strange to say favorite, but a favorite greenwashing example here that you can share with us? Not the winner yet, but something.
No, but naturally the last year's winner then is of course one of my favorites. It's rather hard to have favorites in this field, because companies, you know, who don't do any communication, you don't really see them, or you don't really get aware of them, which is why the jury has a pretty tough work trying to select this example. But last year's winner is the Swedish public transport, which is a great example, because the public transport in Sweden actually reached its 2030 goals, but even its 2045 goals already, and yet we just don't know about it, because we didn't hear anything about it. And the strength in telling that story and making people aware of the that is already going on. In some areas, we're already there, and the people actually part it, and their own behavior shift was a part of it. And that's very powerful, and that's a story that needs to be told. So I think my favorite, yes.
Thank you very much. And another question here is, of course, there is already a Greenwash prize. Do you think there is a risk of mix-up here if you have a Greenhush prize?
No, I think it's important to spread the word about Greenhush and making people aware about it. And if you don't know about it, maybe you get a little curious and you want to figure it out. So it's great. And the Greenwash Award is super important. And I mean, I think we should all keep working hard on preventing all types of greenwash.
Indeed. We need both things. We need both wars. So
Yeah.
Ingmar, you're an expert in climate communication, and you've been in this quite a while, very successfully. What is your take on the importance of talking about greenhushing?
I think it's very important because if we only focus on about greenwashing, that results in companies that are trying to do something are getting penalized. And those that are not doing anything are, they don't get criticized. So it's a dangerous to be, that companies are afraid of communicating what they do. So they must also be a little bit afraid of not communicating what they actually are doing. but the thing with the Greenhushing Award is it's not a shame award. It's actually an encouragement award that you do great, but you can also stop talking about it. Don't shy away.
And actually, what we do, we don't have time with our platform that the companies do actually put frontline their solutions and their work. And since it's so transparent, our platform, if they would be greenwashing, it would be pretty obvious and sort of called out. So that's actually a way of helping.
Yeah, I mean, our platform, we have the symbols where our community gives climate love or climate warning. When we started this, we had no clue how our members were going to use it. We were kind of afraid that most of our members will give a lot of climate warning to criticize, because that's what you see on other social media, a lot of negative news. I don't say it's wrong, it's often right, but what we wanted to give both the stick and the carrot. And what really gladdened me was that organically, without we have done anything with algorithms or anything, 70% of the reviews created on the time is positive reviews. So within time, we're helping companies that are not communicating what to do, that our members are communicating for them.
Exactly.
So that shows that there's a great need of communicating, and I don't think in any other area where your customers are doing your communication work. So in the optimal world, you shouldn't be needed to communicate what you do, because everyone should just communicate about it, but they need to know about it. So that's why you can't hide your climate actions.
Thank you very much, Ingmar. And I'm going to hand over to you to actually introduce the person that is going to declare the award and also hand over the prize, right?
Correct. So we are going to reveal the nominates and the winner of the prize. And I hope with the magic of Zoom, I have with me Matthias Goldman back in Stockholm to actually public the results. And we're going to have like a prize ceremony here. So Matthias, are you there? I hope it's connected.
Maybe he's hushed, huh?
Maybe if he unmutes.
He's coming along. We've been told by our technician here. He's on his way in.
He's a little bit late, so maybe we should.
Well, that's interesting about the platform, because it really creates a safe space, but also transparency. Because if you stick your neck out on the platform and pretend that you're doing your right, then you're not. It's going to be revealed. But if you do talk about your solutions and they're great, a lot of climate love.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it's a sort of a safe place for safe zone for it's going to be not going to be hushing, but not going to be washing either, right?
No, it's, I mean, what we try to achieve is to amplify companies and leaders' action. If they do good, we amplify that. If they do bad, we amplify that. And if you're, I mean, so we're not only for the perfect companies, they hardly exist. We are there for the companies that have honest ambition to transform, to transition to a green future, sustainable future. So you're not perfect. So those companies that we have as partner on our platform, we have over 400. It is not that they only want climate love. I mean, of course they like that, but they also appreciate when a community give climate warning, because you can only improve something if you know that you're bad at something, right?
Exactly.
So this is also what the Greenhush Award is nudging the winners. You're doing great here, but you can improve your communication.
So let's see if we have Matthias with us. A few more minutes. That's all right. We can talk about lots of stuff.
We can do this all day. This is the last broadcast we're doing from Davos.
And it's snowing so hard outside. I see one of our colleagues outside. He's turning completely white, his jacket. So we're happy to be inside here. And Lena, we can still chat with you because you're still with us, right?
Yes.
So Lena, when you're hearing Mer's thoughts on the dialogue that we create actually on the platform, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that's a really good example on how to work against greenhushing too, or to engage people in general, because we see a lot of studies that show that people really want to know more and get involved and to use their power as consumers and make choices, right? And to get this dialogue with the consumers is really the best way, I think, to drive the change. So it's really a nice way you're doing it.
Thank you very much, Lena.
And now I see Matthias Goldman here.
You do.
I do. I have another monitor. You don't see that.
Excellent. I don't see it.
Matthias, if you raise your voice, you will end up in the screen and becoming online, right?
I certainly hope so. I'm so excited to be
here. He is.
Great, Matthias. So we are going into the action. Tell us who is going to, what companies are nominated, and after that, tell us the winner.
Thank you so much. So great to be part of the Davos World Economic Forum. Thanks to you guys. Thanks for the great work that you do. And it's so exciting also to be able to announce the Greenhush Award after hard work from the members and after all the details that Lena and I went through with fact-checking every submission that we had and finally selecting the finalists. And finally, here is the winner. I'm going to read out you're immediately going to understand who the winner is of the Greenhush Award. And of course, you remember that it's somebody or a phenomenon or companies that have done something tremendous for climate and sustainability, but have not been very good at communicating it, have not talked nearly enough about what's been done. So I'm going to read out the nomination now and then show you the award. Online meetings through Meet, Teams, Zoom, and other platforms are top of mind for the behavioral change that started during the pandemic and has now become the new normal. Meeting online instead of physically traveling saves time, reduces costs, and helps us meet the climate challenges much faster than many other innovations and transitions. Still, there is not much talk about how they are part of climate solutions, which is why they are awarded with the Greenhush Award. And I just want to show you the award because if you look closely, well, it's a little bit blurred, but there is nothing. It's a wonderful frame.
Yeah.
It's empty. That's the whole point. And I think you got one right there, Ingmar, to share when you meet them.
We can do like
there you go.
Here,
Yes.
Magic. We actually have a physical object, and this is.
And the reason it's empty is because this is a frame that we want to fill. We want, whenever we connect to an online meeting or whenever they talk about the services they offer, we want them to say, you know what, this could be part of your climate agenda, how you can help reduce climate impact. Of course, you guys have to be in Davos, but just Lena and I are part of showing that we didn't necessarily have to be there this time, and we helped reduce the climate by connecting this way as well. There's many university studies out there showing how the climate impact is reduced, how I can be part of a different meeting almost at the same time, how we can pick up the kids when we need to because of these solutions. But rarely is it spoken enough about this from these giants that I mentioned. So I'm so glad that you're there to be able to hand it over to them and challenge them to communicate more.
You got it, thank you, Matthias.
Yes, and we thought this was a brilliant idea to do this in Davos, because all the companies that are the winners of the award, Google, Microsoft, and Zoom, they are all in Davos. We have tracked them down. We have found 15 people from those companies. We have reached out to them. We have texted them, and we have got not so much in to come here and collect the prize. So that's a little bit.
It kind of shows, Ingmar, how this prize is. If you win a prize, if it's the Greenhush Award, which people sometimes confuse it with, of course you don't want to receive it, right? Because you did something. Yeah. If it's a typical award for great performance, you want to be there. You want to get the flowers and the applauses. And this is confusing for many people because we say you're doing great, but you should really do better when it comes to communicating about it. So some people are sort of hesitant whether they really want to accept it or not. We're going to, and I'm sure you're also going to make sure that they get it, yeah, and that they also get the message.
We didn't have that much time. So
right. We don't have time.
We will track them down after Davos, and they will receive this physically. I think they will actually be honored when we explain.
That's right.
But we actually have like someone in the room here or in the tent that that work closely with two of the winners, Google and Microsoft, helping them with their exponential roadmap. So with that, I want to invite Johan Falk, the founder of Exponential Roadmap, up to stage. And Johan, I can take that. You are responsible, maybe that is an exaggeration, but you're really helping a lot of big companies, including Microsoft and Google, to not only set these targets, but also succeed with them and scale the solutions. So I want to give you this so that you can pay it forward to your Exponential Roadmap members. But I would also like to ask you a question around how do you see, I mean, I know that in the Exponential Roadmap, you have 4 pillars on what to do. Can you explain them a little bit?
Yes, to really have a comprehensive strategy as a company, you should focusing on cutting your own emissions, your value chain emissions, also scaling up the solutions curves, and impacting climate action in society. Setting the targets, KPIs, the transition plans, and implementing, taking action, and reporting. So that's basically the framework. It's like a holistic framework. And we see that all leaders are following that type of thinking now moving forward. It's not just about setting a science-based target. Yeah, that's really good. That's basics. You know, we are far down the road here. And why this is important? Well, to be able to grow as a company, to be aligned with the 1.5 future, you also need to think about third pillar, you know, how you transform your product portfolio, your offering, scale up the solutions so you can exponentially grow your business over time and see it as an opportunity, not just that you need to fulfill certain requirements. So that's a framework. So much more positive upwards thinking.
But you have a 4th pillar as well.
The 4th pillar is, and I think I mentioned, is about how do you actually impact climate action in society? Because what you need to realize, you cannot reach net zero on your own, not even with your value chain. Yes, you need to work with your suppliers and customers. You achieve net zero together. Even that isn't sufficient. We need to do it in society. So it's basically that we need to take action in society as well. As a leader to go in the front line. And that is the reason why we have the 4th pillar, which could be about the right policy influencing, ensure that your trade organizations are not trying to block climate action, but the opposite. It's one example. Invest in new innovation technologies, as we talked about, but also communicate about what you are doing in positive narrative and what is positive. So that is where communication is coming in as a key strategy as well.
Exactly, and that's why we work together.
Exactly, that's right.
And that's why you that follow We Know Time have seen you on Falk many times before, because
Yes.
it's not only about communicating your company's members' action, it's also about communicating what you do. That is important to get more companies and lead on board.
So from your perspective, importance of the online meetings here, the transition here, if you connect this to what you do at ERI, the Exponential Solutions, what has the impact been from what we're actually giving this award to the organizations of the online meetings? Like for instance, today we are in Stockholm, we are in Davos, and Matthias, they're not even in the same location. So we're using these techniques as we speak. So what is the importance of these techniques when it comes to climate solutions? What do you say? What do you say?
Yeah, as we talked about before, we tend to take it for given, you know, things which wasn't possible, you know, 10 years ago. We now say, well, it's just standard. I actually worked in Ericsson a long time ago when the head there said, on the chief technology side, we had a discussion and he said, well, people don't like to have video because we don't like to see each other. But my argument was actually when we communicate, it's much more natural that we see each other than that we talk over the phone and don't see each other. So that should be the natural state. And then I guess COVID triggered that basically. Well, Skype was first, and it's been tremendously important, of course. It is a little bit has had tremendous impact in cutting emissions because all companies today have as part of their policies. By the way, that's something we built into our playbook and as a requirement on all companies, of course, to have sharp targets in terms of business traveling. And that means that we don't travel unless we need it. We use virtual media as a basic strategy. And a lot of companies, as we know, have cut that part of 50, 60, 70%.
Just to mention an example, in Sweden, when people don't fly anymore short distance, a lot of business people they not travel, they take the Zoom meeting instead, and that has affected the whole industry. First, everyone was very glad that was happening, but now the Swedish government are very worried because where's the demand for the airports open? So now they're actually increasing the subsidies to keep it open.
That's an entire different topic.
Instead of adapt. So it green solutions can have side effects on society that some maybe don't like because they don't like change.
So Matthias, let's assume the representatives were sitting here and actually received the award. What do you think how would they react? I mean, just do a little bit of a game here. Imagine.
Well, first of all, I think they would be confused. They would not know whether or not to be thankful or whether or not to, just accept the award or say, but in fact, we do communicate more about the climate benefits. And we would say, hey, we got an internationally recognized jury that says that, well, you should communicate more about this. And then I hope they would say, okay, point taken. Next time you connect to a Zoom, a Meet or a Teams meeting, there will be a little thing saying that compared to an average meeting where you actually are there in person, you save this much CO2 equivalents. So I'm hoping that they would challenge each other, sit there with you, and that they will, when we meet them next time, to sort of up the ante when it comes to climate communication about how the climate benefits are there from not always physically traveling.
Thank you, Matthias. That's like when you take the train, you get the summary every year. How much CO2 do you save from taking the train, flying or driving? So that's a brilliant idea. So turning now to Lena, what happens next? And do you have any front runners already for next year? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, we do have some interesting examples, but I think we'll keep them for the coming year, right? But We would like to encourage everybody to think about this and to send us your nominations. If you have examples of companies that are greenhushing and should be talking more loud about this, please go to greenhushawards.com and send your nominations through the web page. That would be great.
Thank you very much, Lina. Turning now to Johan Falk, do you think we have seen the peak of online meetings, or do we have any new solutions, any more innovations behind the corner, or what is your take on this? And also, Ingmar, you start, Johan.
I think, of course, during COVID, we moved all to virtual meetings, and now, of course, we're figuring out what is a good balance, because we need to meet physically. So, you know, how do we do that, and how do we handle hybrid situation? Because one reason for traveling, sometimes you don't want to be left outside. So I think a lot of technologies which can include people in type of meetings, so not all have to be at the place. So these type of innovations, yeah, exactly. That's a good example, yes, because I think that is a reason why people feel that they're excluded. Yes, and I think with the competition we have now, we have a number of solutions. Skype first, and then soon we're sort of really pushing this. But now we have, as mentioned, Google, Microsoft. There is really up for a race in terms of innovation, which I think is very positive. Yes, I would think so. Ingmar.
I would say that, I mean, this technology with distancing, we were one of the first organizations long before Corona where we actually used Zoom.
2018 already.
I think it was Zoom 0.1 or something like that. And we did live broadcast. We had actually the very first public no-fly climate conference hosted ever back in 2017. Now it's everyone does it. I mean, this is a great technology, but we should also, I mean, during Corona, it kind of get out of hand a little bit. Suddenly, it was used for everything. And so people forgot to, sometimes it's good to just have a phone call because you can be very tired to sit in front of a screen all the time. A phone call you can take when you do a walk in nature or whatever, you can take the fly. So we need to embrace new technology, but we also need to use it right. And if you also see video meeting, it's actually a higher energy use compared to a phone call. So you don't forget the phone call. My phone is never ringing anymore.
That's true.
And every time it happens, it's just someone salesperson. So
Exactly.
Or me.
Or you. Yeah.
So Lina and Matthias, you get the last question here before we conclude. So what can the general public do to sort of support company, make them more safe and secure in communicating what they actually that is good for climate and sustainability?
I think that question is just great because at the end of the day, when people are worried or companies are worried about communicating too much about the climate work and end up sort of green hushing, I think a key reason there is that they just don't believe that the consumers are sufficiently engaged in selecting the most climate beneficial solutions. So whenever we make climate actions in terms of what we buy or what solutions we choose or which organizations we support, we also help combat green.
Excellent. Lina, your perspective, please.
Yeah, I think it's just really good to show your support and both in making choices while consuming and buying the stuff that you support, but also avoiding. And we see this tendency really strong that companies who made mistakes or did things that they get punished by the public, they will get possibilities to change. But it's a good with the consumer pressure that actually shows the companies what people want and that the transition is really important to work on.
Well, thank you very much, Lina and Matthias, for setting up this board and for doing the work with the jury, etc. It's really important what you do. And thank you, Johan Falk, for sharing your insights. And of course, Ingmar Renshaug, as always.
And Karina, now when we come to the end here, thanks to you
it's been a pleasure.
and our co-host Chata Chakraborty as well. You have been amazing, and I know how cold it has been to moderate in the freezing cold here in Davos. So hope that you will get some warmth after this.
Thank you so much, Ingmar. Well, it's always a pleasure. And to all of you watching this, I hope you really enjoyed our sessions here. And please share the link to our sessions, and just go to wedon'thavetime.org. It's easy, and continue with this dialogue. And we talked about this, the importance of transparency and dialogue and sharing climate warnings and giving out climate love. And this actually concludes the live sessions here from the mountain here in Davos. The 4 days of lots of content, but actually we do have 2 great sessions that are recorded here in Davos that we're going to send broadcast now right away after this live session starts. And one is called Why the Energy Supercycle is Unstoppable. And it's from our partner Hitachi Energy. And this panel discussion explores the challenge of the world's growing energy demand in the face of the need to scale up green technologies. So don't miss that. Also, after that, we have a session called Cool Things About Heat Pumps. This webinar brings together experts in the heat pump industry, and don't miss that either. This is really, really important. It's energy efficiency, modernization, etc. So with that said, over and out from Davos. Take care and see you again. Bye-bye.
We are going to talk about the energy super cycle and why we think it's unstoppable. And to do that, and just in terms of our guests here, to my right here we have Elizabeth, who's the CEO of Statnett. Statnett is the Norwegian utility, or no, sorry, Norwegian grid operator. And then beside we have Toshi here, who's the executive chairman of Hitachi. And then on the end there we have Andreas, who is the chairman or the CEO of Hitachi Energy. Right? So let me just sort of give you a little bit of context here before we open up to everybody, right? So you use the phrase super cycle. Now, when I hear the word super cycle, I think of commodities. And actually, I think probably a good place to start about that is to talk about fossil fuels, because we're not going to talk about the fossil fuels being in a super cycle, but I have to explain that. So if we look at fossil fuels across the world, we've probably seen peak demand for oil. All right? We've also seen peak demand for coal. Now, we've got one fossil fuel where we're going to see demand increasing going forward, and that's natural gas. The reason is it's clean and it's very low cost, right? And also it fits very well in if you're going to build a future system built around clean renewables, clean nuclear and stuff like that. So this is what we see. Now, let me just go to the supply side. So today, if I look at the oil industry, we have an excess of supply. And by the way, I'm not including the fact that, let's say, Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves in the world, and we're not exploiting them. The point about it is lots of oil out there and weak demand. I then go to coal. Nobody wants coal anymore. Okay? And it's not about climate change, it's just it's dirty, right? And there are cheaper alternatives like natural gas. So we've got declining demand for that, and we got lots of supply of it. Now, what does that mean? What that means is there's no super cycle in the fossil fuel area because it's high risk. Why would I put money, and I'm a finance person, why would I put money or capital to work in an area where I don't know what's going to happen with demand? Okay, so why are we talking about a super cycle in energy? Because we're actually talking about a super cycle in electricity. Very different, all right? So let me just talk a little bit what that is. If we look going forward, what we're going to do is we're going to electrify nearly all of our energy system. Why? Well, one is it's clean, it's efficient, it's low cost, and guess what? Not one of our digital devices can survive without electricity. Not one. And I have a very simple example, right? I come from Ireland. My home in Ireland had no heat the last 2 days. Let me explain why. I have a little control box on the wall, and believe it or not, it's battery powered, and it went out of batteries. So the point I'm making, even though we're burning natural gas in the house, the controls all use electricity. You use an internal combustion engine car today, the controls use electricity. We cannot do without electricity. I can do without coal tomorrow. I can do without oil. I cannot do without electricity. Now, to add to that, I go and talk about the whole area of digitalization. Well, if I look in the Western world, what we've seen is electricity demand fall for the last 10 years. Not a great place to put your money, right? Well, guess what? Now we're seeing electricity demand go up. Why? Because of artificial intelligence. All right? Really, artificial intelligence is a very big game changer for this whole electrification space. Now, you might say, we got all this growing demand for electricity. Where's it going to come from? Well, let me just talk about the technologies that are revolutionizing the supply side. The first one is solar. Now, you might go, oh my God, solar, how can that revolutionize the world? So let me just put this into perspective. Last year, we installed across the world 600 gigawatts of solar. Now, I'm going to compare that to nuclear. Nuclear, there was 3.5 gigawatts put online. If I look at gas, 10 gigawatts put online. We have never seen an energy technology come to market as quickly as solar. Why? It's easy to install, and it's cheap, and it's getting cheaper, and the performance is getting better, okay? So that's number one. The second thing is energy storage. People always talk about energy storage as a black box out there, we don't need it. Let's be really clear. Every energy system needs storage. So the current storage mechanism in the electricity system is called a pile of coal that's sitting in a coal bunker, or it's gas sitting in a gas tank. That's what we use in terms of storage. Now, going forward, I'm just going to say to you that we're going to go towards chemical storage. We're going to go use lots and lots of batteries going forward. And I'll talk about lithium-ion. Lithium-ion batteries is not just revolutionizing the automobile space, but it will revolutionize what's going on in our homes and our buildings. We will have these batteries in our homes. And I don't mean just for our digital devices. We'll do it just because it's cheap, okay? And it matches very well into solar. And just to give you an idea of the scale, we now have 1,000 gigawatts of batteries that came online last year, most of them in electric cars, all right? If I went back a few years ago, you were probably at 100 gigawatts. So the scale of increase is incredible. Now, the third thing, and this is the game changer, is how do you connect all this together? You connect this together with digitalization. Now, digitalization is sensors, it's semiconductors, it's connectivity of your mobile devices, and more importantly, it's artificial intelligence. And I'm going to end on the artificial intelligence because this is a game changer. And it's not just a game changer in the sense that you can connect everything together and make it a much more efficient system. For those of you who realize what's going on in artificial intelligence today, the latest AI models are up to the PhD standard of anyone doing a STEM qualification today. That's any science, technology, or mathematics. Now, what does that mean? Well, I guess I'm going to have lots and lots of people helping me innovate faster than ever before. And because I'm going to be able to innovate faster than ever before, what this means is that technologies like nuclear fusion, small modular reactors, you name it, are going to come to market much quicker than we are before because we will have real innovations in the area of material science. And I even go far to say we'll find new elements. And we might even come up with new physics laws, right? That's the extent of really what is happening in the world. Now, what does that mean for me in conclusion? Well, actually, that doesn't sound like a small thing. That sounds like a revolution. And if I go back in time, the first energy revolution, or the first industrial revolution, was a combination of coal and steam engine. So you needed the steam engine to drive coal demand. Then the second one was the automobile. It drove oil demand. Now, digitalization and AI, what they do is they push electricity demand, and in particular, it's going to be clean electricity. And again, clean electricity because of the innovations going on. And my own view is that the revolution that we're going through now is going to be bigger than the Industrial Revolution, either of the last two. That's how big it is. Okay, and that's why I'm sitting here to talk about this. So at this point in time, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to hand over, and I'm going to hand over to Toshi and hear his views from a systemic level about what's going on in the energy space, and in particular electricity.
Okay. Thank you, Gerard. First of all, let me talk about Hitachi's social innovation business first. And Hitachi promoting the social innovation business, which is the provider intelligent infrastructure, such as a railway system or a power grid system, and so on, by leveraging digital technology all over the world. And that means Hitachi has a capability of developing the AI, also nuclear power plants and or power grid or something like that. You mentioned how to combine and with the clean energy and how to make the people happy. This is one of the very important social innovation targets. And Hitachi is committed to solving the social challenges. It is, including the carbon neutrality, very important. And as you know, global CO2 emission reaches 31.4 billion tons in 2022, and about 50% from Asia, especially India, China, and India. And while the U.S. accounted for the 13%, and so we have to solve these kind of CO2 emission. We have to reduce all over the world. It's a very urgent problem, and also it is very important for the human being all over the world. And also recently, you mentioned generative AI, has become increasingly widespread. And as a result, the consumption of energy consumption in data center, as increasing, and this is a very the adoption of the generative AI is expected to accelerate even further. So we have to solve this issue. Everybody uses generative AI, and also we have to reduce the CO2, and that means we have to provide a sustainable power supply while ensuring the carbon neutrality. We have to solve these kind of holistic solution, holistic problem. Well, everybody uses generative AI as much as possible, but we have to control carbon emission. So we have to solve this kind of issue from the supply side and demand side. Also the power transition. Holistic solution is very important. And Hitachi probably provide from the solution supply side, probably we provide a total system, renewable energy, solar power or wind power to control the storage, and depending on the next day's weather, we can control the charge or discharge schedule. We have provide such kind of the system also Hitachi can provide nuclear, in a little bit long term, but Hitachi have already experience in the big size nuclear power plant, 1.1 gigawatts in Japan. And also now we are developing the SMR, 300 megawatts SMR with GE Hitachi. It is a joint venture with GE. So we've already developing, and the first user, the first reactor will be installed in Ontario, Canada, by 2029, and the we can provide probably once we can complete development of the SMR, we can deliver all over the world. It is I think it mitigate the risk and also the easy to install. Not so long term, but easy to install. So it is one solution. And second, Hitachi Energy will provide efficient, power transmission. That is the very important. And also Hitachi provide the data center solution. We can provide the optimized data center handling, including a cooling system or energy management system, and so on. So we will do our best to, provide sustainable energy while achieving the carbon neutrality. But probably Hitachi Energy will be the very important role to solve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, I mean, you come from Norway, and if I look at Norway, Norway's really at the forefront of electrifying its energy system. And I mean, you've been doing it for a long line in the sense of heat, but now, in terms of transport, construction, et cetera, you're all at the forefront. So tell me a little bit about your experiences and then what are the challenges now as a grid operator?
It's a funny thing that you say that we are in the front, because I think it's just natural to us. We've had hydropower for many, many years. And all the houses use electricity for heating, and they have been doing for many, many years. In 2010, we launched a strategy in Statnett, and we called it The Future is Electric. And everybody laughed at us, not thinking about that they were using electricity already. But we have been totally dependent on oil and gas, of course, huge incomes to the whole Norway. But they didn't believe that actually in 2010, they didn't believe in an electric future. Just before Christmas, we launched a new strategy. Well, we had a few strategies since 2010, but keep calling it The Future is Electric until now. And what we call it now is electrification for a new era. Because it's suddenly, I think Norway realized in about 2018 that the future were no longer electric, the future were suddenly here. And in this strategy, because we have seen the demand from 2018, and we are in no position to meet this demand at the moment, even in Norway. And they are all very angry with us because we are responsible to meet this demand. And as we say, we who are responsible for the grid, that there will not be any transition without transmission. And I think people maybe sometimes forget that. So what we're doing at the moment is to really use technology to get the most out of the grid and the power system we are operating today. And while we're doing that, we're planning and constructing a whole new transmission grid also in Norway. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are really well off before because we have been constructing and really reconstructing a transmission grid from 2010. But now it's getting really old, the transmission grid in Norway, and the demand is huge. Another issue and I think we share that with all of the world and with Europe, is that really we must be working on the energy security and accelerate that. And the third prioritized area in this strategy is to enhance the resilience of the power system we have today, both in operation and development. And we mustn't forget that Europe is the world's most interconnected power system. And that's really something that if something goes wrong in one region, if we don't have a really resilient and robust power system, it will really have an impact on the whole Europe and the neighboring regions. So Norway is a part of the Nordic region, and we are really focusing on how to make it even more resilient going forward, because we are all getting very dependent on electricity.
Totally.
And then we have to go into, I mean, we all know the geopolitical situation, but we also need to improve the supply chains in Europe. And we need to think about spare parts. We need to plan in the power system. We need to plan in security. From we start planning, we need to think about construction, because either we like it or not, a grid, it's a very physical, it's not very easy to hide. So you really need to focus on security from when you start planning the system. And I think what's happened in Europe since 2022 is really made us, and the geopolitical situation, and the fact that the whole world is right in the middle of this transition, and the supply chains are very, well, they're not very robust for us from our side, because everybody's right in the middle of the transition. So that's why that is the third prioritized area in our strategy, is to accelerate the energy security, both as part of Norway, but also in the region we're part of, but also as a part of Europe. Yeah.
Andreas, maybe just to follow on from that, can we start about energy security? So how do you help her and grid operators in that whole energy security resilience area? Because the whole point is, without electricity, we can't do anything, right? Simple as that.
I think it's an interesting question and point. And I think you are completely right, Elizabeth. I think until a couple of years before, energy security and safety was either completely ignored or just seen as a technical term. What happens if a overhead line is falling down? I think the whole thing has become a complete new dimension. And one aspect why we see so much renewables as well growing at the moment is that the point of energy security and safety is read from a different angle. If I don't sitting on coal, oil or gas, I'm dependent from imports, and I don't want to be dependent from imports. We have seen what can happen. Oil and gas that's why definitely going down, even in countries which have been traditionally big oil importers like China and India. India has a clear strategy to get rid of all imports of oil and gas in the near future. That's a 180 billion price ticket, and rely on renewables, because the sun is always local and the wind is always local. But of course, it's not only that angle which we could discuss. As well, as Elizabeth stated, her net is stretched, to say it mildly, maybe overloaded. It's aging. It's creating issues as well. So how to make that more reliant and more resilient in a technical way as well. And actually, yes, building new things, when we're doing it together, that's one thing, but it takes longer than expected. It needs assets which are rare. I think we have to use IT and OT to do that as well, looking at the assets, how they are loaded, how they are used, and their AI can play a good role. Understanding better the consumption pattern, forecasting weather, really looking into the future, and really going through all levels and details on that. On the other hand, the installed base, what we have as an industry, is huge, and it's not used and operated always in the most intelligent way. We are still in a way that after a couple of years, we exchange all of the transformer because we say so. We are not looking into it, was the transformer really used that much in that time? Do we really have to do that and have an outage? Can we use maybe predictive maintenance to forecast which part should be exchanged when? And maybe even in addition, even they have not failed, because avoid every kind of single technical outage or issue makes the grid more reliable and more resilient. Of course, coming to the way what you said about Europe is the biggest connected grid in the world. You can get much more resilient if connecting it differently, not on AC, but on DC, where you have no interactions from one country to another. I think it's a complete new level. And I think, ironically, I would even say what you said, Gerard. Yes, the age of electricity, as it's called by the IEA, is fueled by AI and electrification, of course. On the other hand, AI will contribute a big part to solve that riddle, deal with the challenges of today and tomorrow to make the grid more resilient, more safer, and more cheaper. Yeah. So I think it works on both ends, which I think is good news.
Can I ask maybe on that there, if I look at, say, AI, I think, as I said, I think it's the biggest technology change actually probably in the history of mankind. I see it as a solution as well, but I see it as a problem in the short term. Because if I just see Donald Trump, what he's announced, et cetera, it's a huge increase in data center, which means you need electricity.
My suggestion is, sustainable network establishment is very important to, transfer the power. That's okay. But when look at the practical solution in Asia, for example, more than 70% is energy comes from the thermal power plant, fossil thermal power plant, coal. So my proposal is we had better consider about the transit pathway. For example, in these 15 years, for example, we had better co-combustion with hydrogen, co-combustion with ammonia. We can reduce the CO2, right? It is a practical way. All we have to substitute, change the burner, existing the fossil coal thermal plant. All we have to change the burner. So we can reduce CO2. It is a practical way. So I dare to say, I'd like to propose such kind of transit pathway. But it is very difficult to understand in the EU area because especially banking, ESG investment, and they reject this kind of the transit pathway. But if we have a sustainable power supply in short term, we had better. I dare to say, we had better consider about such kind of co-combustion thermal power plant.
Thank you very much. Andreas, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a holistic approach to that. In the past, we have to say, in the drive for sustainability and climate change, we tended, especially in Europe, to go to a 100% solution or better 110% solution. And that, of course, is very costly. It's always pushing for the ideal solution, but we all know, at least as engineers, we could do everything with unlimited time and budgets. But we have never unlimited time and budget, so we have to go for compromises. And going for an 80% solution, which is 80% efficient or sustainable, than doing nothing, is still the better way. And that's what Toshi is saying. There were better ways than switching off all things and creating now a problem which we have to solve on top of that, and still doing the right thing. And this is what we will see probably in the next couple of years. We have to find compromises on all levels, on regulations, on permitting, on construction, how building faster, and still finding compromise with society. Because the biggest hurdle actually for the transition or the energy transition is we're dealing with people. Nobody wants to have in his backyard anything, not a cable, not an overhead line, not a coal-fired station, not a gas station, not to say a nuclear asset. But it was always the same thing. Since more than 2,000 years, you can read about it, that nobody wants in his backyard any change. So we have to find a compromise and say, look, this is the right thing what we are doing. This is what it cost us. These are the advantages. You see it in Norway, by the way, that the advantages are there. If somebody in Norway would have explained or stated 20 years ago, we stop using our own oil and gas and we're going to electrify everything, everybody would say, are you crazy? You know, this is what we have. This is what we're doing. We are selling it, so why are you not using it? But now it's cheaper. An electric car in Norway is cheaper than a gasoline car. Electrification is cheaper, using a lot of hydropower. So I think we have to do that in a way which is technically acceptable for society, and then be solving the issues short term as well.
And Elizabeth, can I just maybe go back to something we touched on earlier on, which was interconnectors, right? How do you see the future then?
We have had interconnectors for many, many years in Norway. We have about 17 interconnectors, and at the moment it's very controversial, politically controversial. And I think everything was going quite well because it's a part of being secure, energy security. And it's also, of course, a part of value creation. I mean, hydropower, we're selling it when we don't need it ourselves. But when the war in Ukraine happened and Russia went in there, and we had, well, you all know what happened with the energy prices. And suddenly, we imported the energy prices. We've always had very stable energy prices in Norway, and suddenly we didn't have any stable, and it was quite high at some time as well. And then this discussion really started, and that was unfortunately at the same time that we launched our or went into commission with the last interconnector to the UK, right at the time or just before. And then suddenly you said you put, you know, said that high prices, the reason for high prices in Norway was the interconnectors, and in some way it was true. But what we trying to tell and trying to make politicians realize that having interconnectors, it's part of energy security. It's part of value creation, and we both import and we export, and in average, on an ordinary normal year, the price is not, it's quite good actually, and we see both that the prices last year were lower than the year before in average, but in the peak hours or when the price is zero, where they start writing about it and they start discussing it. So it's very controversial, but and it's not my job to look into the future and see how it goes. We have the interconnectors. It's a very important part of the security of supply in Norway, and it's also part of the security of supply in the rest of Europe as well. So you can't just choose to, if we didn't have any of these interconnectors, we have to really invest in a lot of production and a lot of grid in Norway, and that's the alternative. And we need to make people realize that that's the alternative, and that's why we're always discussing it, actually.
And Andreas, how do you see the future of interconnectors?
Well, actually, what you're saying, it has two angles, right? It's a technical angle. Interconnectors are helping with energy security and safety from a technical point of view, because if you don't have them, you have to build much more equipment on your own, which you can't share, which you only use in emergency, maybe never, and it's quite expensive. Building even a gas turbine as an emergency peaker, which runs maybe 600 hours a year, is nothing. It's actually having a car and never using it. It has a price tag. and the price tag is paid by every taxpayer. And so if you would really calculate that through, you pay in the end without interconnectors much, much more, and you pay it forever on a stable base. Yes, it's stable, but it's very expensive. From a market point of view, of course, yes, you're importing volatility, but the volatility is still cheaper than the average high price. But it's very hard to explain, especially in market systems where many customers, as in Norway, are directly connected to the market price and not having a tariff which is for a long time flat. Which system is better? Even if you have, like in Germany, you have for a long period fixed prices, they just have the tendency to creep up because based on the volatility. So I think we have to just explain the complexity and say, look, guys, there are not many possibilities either. We isolate ourselves and building it on our own, and that is the kind of price tag we have. It means more asset in our country, in your backyard. That means higher prices, more taxpayer money, or we have interconnectors and sharing risk as a community. And it has benefits as well, because you can exchange between UK and Norway energy. If you have enough wind energy in UK, the UK is exporting and you have a benefit, and vice versa. What is the best way? It is not an easy task, especially because we are coming out of a time period where this energy triangle between affordability, sustainability, and security was unbalanced, because security didn't play any price tag at all, technically or politically. There was no volatility, everything was fine. Now we see the downside, that the volatility comes due to security and safety and raising the price tag and creates volatility. But the risk was always there. And I think we have to balance it. There is no ideal solution. There is no magic trick we can play. There is no technical solution alone. That is something we have to have the discussion and say, look, this is the way it is.
Is there not another point that we should add to this, which is the demand side? In other words, if you create flexibility on the demand side, that's also a big part of the solution.
Yeah, definitely. But that's what I mean. We have a system which was created decades ago in a complete different circumstance. Now we have volatile generation, but we don't have volatile demand. And data center, especially Gen AI data center, actually adding volatility on the demand side, because they are unpredictable when they are starting and when they are stopping to learn at these huge peaks. So we have to use AI actually to predict that better and give our customers or your customers the benefit of flexibility and say, look, if you want to charge your electrical vehicle during the night, sorry, that's more expensive than you're doing it during the day. So if you plan ahead, you have a benefit. And actually, in the industry and all my experience, what I've seen, if you give people an incentive and a little bit of this playing character, they love it. You know, as I put a solar system on my rooftop in Germany, my wife was telling me, why you're wasting all that money? We don't have nearly no sun in Germany, and what is it? Now she is looking very eager when the sun is shining to put all these things to work, right? She's even using that more than me, and even if the price difference is not that big. So I think there is something what we can do if we explain it better, and we making actually our demand side as flexible and as volatile than our generation side.
Toshi, do you want to say anything about what's going on in Asia?
I think it is very important to establish energy security. And in order to establish energy security, we have to consider about how we can establish trust among like-minded countries. It is very important. And you know, after establishing the like-minded country group, we can link to the network, okay? And also we can share the technology among this group, and how to reduce the energy consumption, or how to use the AI by using AI, how to reduce the energy consumption and CO2 emission. We can share. But judging from the current situation, there are so many, you know, geopolitical issues all over the world. So EU is one of the like-minded group. That's okay. But there are so many, you know, different, you know, it is very, the country which is very difficult to establish a trust. So how we can establish a trust and to consider about the holistic solution among the like-minded country. This is it should be the baseline.
Elizabeth, can you talk about the demand side, what you guys are doing?
We are working at the moment to get as much as flexibility into the demand side.
Okay.
And to look for customers that want to connect and disconnect when we want them to disconnect. Because we have a lot of peaks, we have a cold weather in Norway, and just to get them to disconnect for a few hours will help enormously. And that's part of, well, the point that we need to utilize the power system that we have in the best and optimize the use of the power system. That is having both flexibility on the demand side and at the production side as well. That's part of that.
Okay. Can I go back to what we actually started with, which was energy supercycle? I said it wasn't energy super, it's an electricity supercycle. What's your own opinions, and what does it mean for your business and how you see it going forward? I mean, I will start with you.
No, I don't know what to call it. I'm always wondering if we all say that we're in the middle of a transition. I believe that we are just in the beginning of the transition, and a revolution or a supercycle. And we always say that 2030 is today and 2050 is tomorrow. So we are always in a hurry. I think we need to approach it both, I mean, as a society and both as between together with our suppliers as well, and in a very holistic way. And I think we need to rethink how we collaborate in a very different way, because we have no time to sit around and wait for someone else to pick up the bill or pick up the risk. I think we need to lean in and share the risk and share the cost, because we have no time to sit around and wait for someone else to dig in and do the job for us.
Tashi, how do you look at it?
Well, Elizabeth mentioned the holistic thinking. I think it is a very important keyword, because take for instance, recently it is very difficult to consider about, for example, carbon neutrality and the circular economy, nature positive. These are seem to be the different issue, but we should consider about the holistic. I mean, in order to achieve the carbon neutrality, circular economy is very important. How to minimum, material input, and we reuse the product again and the material again. It is very important. We can reduce energy, and this also we have to consider about the nature positive. Or otherwise, if we throw away these product to the underground or something, it is something not so good for the earth, right? So in order to treat this one by using energy, it is a very energy consumption. We need to consider about the energy. So we should consider about the total holistic solution is important. And also, the beginning of the AI, at that time, we have to consider about the AI, ethical issue or something. But the important thing is how to adoption of the AI, generative AI is we have it is a very we need a lot of energy. So we have to consider about the energy consumption in the data center. We have to consider about the holistic solution. And as for the energy security, we should, use the everything that's renewable energy, nuclear, thermal power plant, and this is the co-combustion technology. We should use all of them, and that we can have some sustainable power supply by using all of them. So do not stick to this one, and consider about the holistic. That is a key word.
Andreas, I mean, if I look at your business, it seems like you have a huge opportunity in front of you. So do you get out of the bed every day excited? And what does it mean for you guys going forward?
Well, of course, we are excited about this age of electricity and the supercycle. And we not only believe in it, we feel it, and we know it's coming, and we are in the middle of that. On the other hand, you have to consider where we are coming from as an industry, Hitachi Energy and all the others. For 20 years, actually, we were fighting for survival, and the decision of the day was which factory we are closing tomorrow, and which we are not closing tomorrow. So, and now we are in that complete different situation. So I think the organization is feeling a little bit like a couch potato, sitting in front of the TV, having one package of chips after the other. And one morning, somebody is coming and says, look, you start running. You're starting running a marathon without training. You can train while you run. So the organization is stressed. Yes, we are investing heavily, 6 billion euros. But we have to hire 15,000 people in 3 years. We have to train them. We have to add them. We have to learn how to produce efficiently, because we were never running on 3 shifts in the last 15, 20 years. That creates other problems. So is it a good problem to have? Definitely yes. Because the other side of the medal was not good neither. But of course, it is a huge undertaking for us. There are huge challenges, quality issues, delivery issues. We are dealing with people, and our customers have to be with us, and we cannot satisfy everybody. But yes, it's a huge endeavor, and it's really be good to be in that industry at this time, especially if we are doing it really for the greater good. You know, the electricity revolution and transition will only happen if we can supply equipment, and if we're using our existing equipment better and efficiently.
Very good. Well, on that note,
and welcome to today's webinar on one of the most impactful solutions for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from our homes and our buildings, heat pumps. I'm Shata Chakraborty, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this exciting and important discussion. This might not be known to everyone, but buildings are responsible for nearly 40% of all global emissions, with 15% of that coming from the heating and cooling of buildings. That's a huge chunk of emissions we need to tackle if we're serious about fighting climate change. And this challenge isn't just about numbers, it's about rethinking how we power the spaces where we live, where we work, where we thrive. One way to address these emissions is through heat pumps, which can not just heat, but also cool our homes while drastically reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. They're more energy efficient, they're more environmentally friendly, and when implemented at scale, they have the potential to revolutionize how we think about energy use in our buildings. However, despite these benefits, heat pumps are often misunderstood. Think about it. Did you know what they were? That's why we've brought together leading voices from across the industry to help us unpack the science and technology behind heat pumps, and then address some of the common myths and misconceptions around them, and explore real-world success stories that show just how transformative this technology can be. Over the next hour, we're going to dive into the challenges and opportunities of scaling heat pumps, from the policies and financial incentives needed to drive adoption, to the technical innovations and workforce development required to make this transition a reality. Whether you're a homeowner considering an upgrade, a policymaker shaping the future of sustainable housing, or someone just passionate about clean energy, this discussion is for you. So I like to thank our collaborators at Train Technologies for making this event possible, and our incredible panelists who are here to share their expertise. Together, we're going to tackle the big questions and explore the exciting future of heat pumps. So let's get started. I'd love to introduce our keynote speaker, Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, who will kick things off by sharing his perspective on heat pumps.
Hi there, I'm Martin Heinrich. As a United States Senator, I've been proud to pass major legislation on electrification. But I started thinking about electrification a long time before I came to the Senate. When I was growing up, my dad worked as an IBW electric utility lineman. And the power grid that my dad spent his career maintaining is one of the greatest engineering feats in American history. And it connected millions of American homes to electricity. The transformation and decarbonization of that same power sector will be the key to our success in the 21st century. When I went to college, I started learning about how we can use clean electrons, better materials, and more efficient technologies to power our economy. While studying engineering at the University of Missouri, I helped build a carbon fiber solar-powered car called the Sun Tiger. We competed with several dozen other college solar car teams as we all raced from Dallas to Minneapolis. In the process, I realized how many things we could do better, cleaner, and smarter with electrification. Decades later, we are now in a place where electric technologies have leapfrogged their fossil-burning competitors in efficiency and in performance. This includes electric technologies like heat pumps for water heating and home heating and cooling. These modern electric appliances are not your grandparents' 1970s era electric baseboard heating systems, and they work well in both colder and warmer climates. I've seen firsthand the major benefits that come from these new home appliance technologies as I've installed them in my own home in New Mexico. They replace machines that are burning dangerous compounds inside our homes, resulting in fewer young kids with asthma, fewer seniors with breathing problems. Many of us don't even realize these health problems are being caused by the appliances in our homes. Because they are much more efficient to operate, these appliances can also create savings on our energy bills. And when you pair them with clean and carbon pollution-free power generation, these electric appliances are among the tools that will help us address climate change. A few years back, I was proud to stand up the Electrification Caucus in Congress. Our caucus negotiated and passed key electrification provisions in both the infrastructure law and in the Inflation Reduction Act. This includes the new energy-efficient home improvement tax credits and my new home electrification and appliance rebates program, which I authored. These new credits and rebates are already giving more Americans the freedom to choose what's best for their families, cleaner, healthier home appliances. And they are spurring a clean energy manufacturing renaissance across our country. With each new heat pump installed, we're helping to deliver a healthier and more secure future for our kids.
Thank you so much, Senator, for that insightful and inspiring keynote. Your perspective on the role of heat pumps in reducing emissions and the importance of wide adoption really sets the stage for today's conversation. Now we're going to dive deeper into these aspects with our incredible panel of experts. They'll help us explore the science and technology behind heat pumps and tackle some of the common misconceptions and share real-world stories about how heat pumps are already transforming homes, businesses, and communities. So I'm really looking forward to introducing our incredible panelists with you all today. We have with us Ted Tiffany. He is the Senior Technical Lead at the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Welcome, Ted. We have Jason Leroy, Director of Research and Development at Train Technologies. Welcome, Jason. We have Christy Drutman, the founder of the Green Jobs Board. Great to have you, Christy. And we have Lindsay Robbins, the VP of Market Transformation at CPC Climate Capital. Thank you for joining, Lindsay. All right, so let's get into it. Jason, I'm going to throw this first question to you. Despite the name, heat pumps really aren't just about heat, right? They also cool homes. So can you break down in simple terms for our audience how they work and why they're more efficient than the more traditional systems we're used to?
Sure. So I would say in simple terms, a heat pump is a device that transfers heat from a low temperature space to a high temperature space. Now, this is an important realization because heat in nature wants to flow from hot to cold, not the other way around. So it's sort of through the magic of a heat pump where we can make heat flow in the opposite direction that nature intended, which cold to hot, and in a way that's advantageous to us. So with that in mind, a heat pump can either cool or heat a home simply by reversing the direction of the refrigerant flow in the system. Let's first look at a heat pump operating in cooling mode during the summer. In this case, heat from the relatively cooler indoor environment is transferred to the hotter outdoor environment, which cools the home. But when operating in heating mode during the winter, heat from the relatively colder outdoor air is transferred up to the warmer indoor environment, which heats the home. Now, in both cases, heat is transferred from a low temperature environment to a higher temperature environment. An air conditioner is simply a piece of equipment that doesn't have the capability to reverse the direction of the refrigerant flow. Therefore, it can only operate in cooling mode. A heat pump can do both. Now, you asked also, why is a heat pump more efficient than many traditional systems? And the reason a heat pump is more efficient than, say, a furnace or strip heat is because it has a coefficient of performance, what we call COP, coefficient of performance, greater than 1. This COP that I'm talking about, it's a measure of heat output divided by energy input, or in simpler terms, what you get out divided by what you put in. So a COP of 1 would represent, say, 100% efficiency. A high efficiency heat pump will operate with an average COP of 3 over the course of an entire season. So that's 300% efficient. Again, that is to say, for every unit of electrical energy input, you get 3 units of heating output. And this is going to beat a gas furnace or strip heat because these technologies are limited to a COP of 1, meaning a furnace or strip heat cannot provide any more heat output than the energy that is input.
All right, thank you for establishing how the actual technology works. And Ted, I'm going to turn to you because this is being disseminated. It's widespread in California. California has been a leader in clean energy and climate solutions. So talk to us about how California, the heat pump partnership, is working to make heat pumps really a cornerstone in California's decarbonization strategy.
Yeah, the California Heat Pump Partnership is a kind of a unique entity. We've brought together the major utility regulators, the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, and the California Air Resources Board, together with the governor's office and the major manufacturers, alongside the major retailers, so Lowe's and Home Depot, those kind of folks, to talk about what are the barriers to market for increasing heat pumps. It's really nice to get everybody into a room and just figure out where our challenges are, where the consumer inspiration needs to come in. The outreach for consumers and contractors are a key element of the partnership targets, but really just trying to get everybody at the table to solve the barriers to getting to our 6 million heat pump goal.
Okay, well, it's great to see that this is actually being pushed out the way it is, and that these standards are, the ambitions are as high as they are, and that it looks like ambitions will be met. So keep this work up. And then, Christy, I'm going to turn to you because there's so much opportunity here, and we see how these heat pumps are not just allowing for technology advances to transform to society, but is also allowing for potential new jobs that comes with these kinds of opportunities and transitions to clean energy, right? So we need skilled workers for this. As someone who runs the Green Jobs Board, how can we encourage and inspire people to pursue careers that really support these kinds of technologies, the heat pump industry and other green technologies?
Yeah, I would say that, people don't realize that there is a big need for this transition and that there's actually good paying long-term job stability and opportunities to get into things around becoming, like learning about heat pumps and getting certified in it, becoming an HVAC technician, working on commercial refrigeration. I think these are industries that are desperately wanting to transition and needing to transition. And I think being able to get as many people possible trained in that and to educate people that there is long-term career growth and stability in these industries, I think is going to be really important moving forward. And I think, a lot of people are not necessarily wanting to pursue a college degree anymore and looking for, different opportunities to get into, trades or skill sets in these industries. And I think that this emergence of this technology could really open up a lot of doors and opportunities for a lot of communities.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And that's the kind of thing that the government can get behind too. This is for any administration. It's always a good sign when new technologies allow for new opportunities for new skilled workers. And so we're seeing the government get behind this in different capacities. So there's that. And then there's also what happened to you, Lindsay. Earlier this year, you were awarded $6.97 billion as a grant from the EPA. So that goes to show that there is support coming from the federal administration. Can you tell us about this grant and how you're planning to deploy it? How are you really prioritizing energy efficiency with the heat pumps? What is it that an agency like the EPA is seeing the value in?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So in 2022, when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, it committed $27 billion to the EPA to start the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, also referred to as GGRF. And that was really intended to kind of mobilize financing and private capital in order to address climate change, with the added goals of ensuring U.S. economic competitiveness and promoting energy independence, lowering energy costs, and kind of stimulating economic revitalization, especially in disadvantaged communities. And when my organization, the Community Preservation Corporation, which has been a leader in green lending for more than 15 years now, learned about the creation of GGRF, we knew it was something that we really had to be part of. And so we came together with two of our partners, Calvert Impact and Self Help, and we formed a new nonprofit called Climate United, which was designed specifically to be able to successfully deploy the GGRF funds across all of the crucial market sectors in the U.S. And last April, the GGRF Awards were announced, and we were incredibly fortunate and honored to receive almost $7 billion to implement our investment and market transformation plan. And, we are going to be spending $2.4 billion of those dollars in the multifamily sector. And Community Preservation Corporation started a new subsidiary, CPC Climate Capital, which is going to be in charge of implementing that multifamily strategy. And that strategy is really focused on investing in the creation of high-performance multifamily housing, aiding in job creation, and most importantly, I think, paving the way for private capital to invest in these projects in the long term, which is really the only way we're going to create the kind of scaled support that we need to do energy upgrades in these buildings that need them so much. And our Climate United partners are going to be deploying similar strategies in single-family homes and commercial and the MUSH sector. And overall, Climate United is spending 50% of our GGRF award specifically on high-performance buildings. So Climate United's definition of a high-performance building is aligned with the Department of Energy's net zero energy building definition. And that means that we want buildings to be energy efficient because they're minimizing waste and installing efficient appliances and doing envelope upgrades. We want buildings to be all electric and replace all of the hot water and heating that is fossil fuel based with all electric efficient systems like heat pumps, and eliminate on-site greenhouse gas emissions. And we want to make sure that they're using clean power from both, maximizing on-site clean energy generation, but also hopefully using energy from increasingly clean energy grids. And we recognize that not all properties, especially many existing buildings, are going to be able to get to that level with one renovation. But our performance standards are designed to make sure that at a minimum, every property that is getting GGRF funds is making a significant improvement in energy efficiency and has a game plan to become a net zero property over time. And we will not finance any installations of new fossil fuel equipment. And all of that, which means, I think we're going to see heat pumps utilized frequently in the projects that are accessing these funds. And because of their combined ability to both replace fossil fuel equipment and also increase efficiency.
That's great. It sounds like there's so many creative ways that heat pumps and accelerating adoption of heat pumps are really being accelerated through private-public partnerships and through these various financing incentives and these challenges, right? So Trane Technologies, Jason, I'm coming back to you, has really made incredible strides, we know, in advancing heat pump technology. And you had great success in the Department of Energy's Cold Climate Heat Pump Challenge. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that challenge involved and what it means for making heat pumps more reliable in colder climates?
You bet, and I appreciate the question because I love talking about these cold climate heat pumps. So the Department of Energy's Cold Climate Heat Pump Challenge, it developed performance specifications that were, I would say, really unheard of up to that point. Just to give you kind of a flavor, the performance requirements of the challenge were such that the heat pumps had to provide 100% heating capacity all the way down to a 5-degree Fahrenheit winter outdoor temperature, and to do so with a coefficient of performance of 2.4. Now, remember when we discussed earlier what the COP was, we're talking about 240% efficient with a COP of 2.4. And again, that's full heating capacity all the way down to 5F outdoors. If you're not calibrated on performance levels, I will just tell you that this performance specification is super high efficiency under extremely challenging conditions. So, and in addition to that, the heat pumps were required to operate all the way down to minus 20 Fahrenheit outdoors. Yeah. So when we tested ours at the DOE labs, Trane's cold climate heat pump prototype, it performed all the way down to minus 23, which was actually as low as the DOE labs could get. So we could have gone even lower, but the labs couldn't. So we were really excited about that. After the testing, right? So after all this rigorous testing process where Trane surpassed all of DOE's requirements for the high efficiency heating in these freezing temperatures, our Trane cold climate heat pump prototype was next successfully used in a field trial and provided heating for a home in Boise, Idaho for 2 winters.
Wow.
And we ran in heat pump mode, which is extracting the heat from the outdoor air 90% of the time. And so that means we only used backup electric strip heat for like around 10% of the time. And during those two seasons, we saved 15% energy for the homeowners.
Yeah, that's incredible. So these are, I mean, the technology is impressive. And thank you for being technical explaining that, because that's, we need to understand that. Christy, you are truly the communicator. You're the one who can turn that, the numbers into stories, right? And Jason just shared some great examples, some great stories, but talk to us about why communicating like that as a narrative is so important. Because a lot of communities may not have seen the value of heat pumps yet and don't really get how they work the way Jason just clearly explained it, right? It's not necessarily easily understandable by everybody. So how do you believe it's best to engage with diverse communities about this kind of technology?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about a lot of the stories and anecdotes I was reading over this past summer. This was the hottest summer recorded in human history, and there is plenty of communities that were suffering because of it, dealing with heat stroke, dealing with illness. And I think being able to provide a service like giving communities that are cash strapped for affording a proper air conditioner and making that change, and then instantly seeing the positive benefits that having a technology like this in their home that not only saves them money on their bills, but also they can see that they're not breathing in toxic fumes, and they're able to live in a comfortable, cool environment. I think those are very tangible things that a lot of households and communities could resonate with without you even needing to dive into all the science, right? At the end of the day, people just want to be able to live their lives and improve their quality of life for them and their families. And I think that this type of technology has benefits across the board: economic, environmental, health benefits. So I think being able to communicate those benefits in a way that isn't putting the burden on the consumer or the community is really important, by just educating them like, hey, through public-private partnerships, we are going to subsidize this for you. Can we install this in your house? Can we, maybe audit what is happening to, your community or your household on how these things are impacting you, and seeing the before and after effect, and getting some more of those case studies and testimonials from communities who have positively benefited from this technology being in their homes. I think stories like that can make people feel a little less threatened by it, maybe a bit more open to the possibility of it, and ultimately understand that they can get, long-term benefits for everyone involved.
Yeah. And Lindsay, I'd love for you to pick up on that, right? So it sounds like some communities that could really benefit from this technology, many that have been historically disenfranchised or more low income. How do we, so we know how to potentially communicate to them about it, but how do we ensure that they really do have access, that it's an equitable experience in being able to enjoy the benefits of these heat pumps? How do we ensure that they're accessible to low income and underserved communities?
Yeah, I mean, it is so crucial to ensure that low income and disadvantaged communities can access the technologies that they need to, have efficient and affordable heating and cooling, which they deserve, and to be able to utilize clean energy. And I think until equipment and installation costs come down from broader market adoption, that, subsidies and incentives are really going to continue to be crucial to get these technologies into the homes of the people that need them the most. And also to make sure that those homes get the envelope improvements that they need to ensure that going all electric, really lowers their energy bills and delivers that benefit to them as well. But we also need to make these energy upgrades a standard part of both new construction and building upgrades and retrofits. And, that's why with GGRF, we're really focused on trying to transform the market by developing a playbook that private capital can use to invest in high performance housing. And we're really trying to integrate energy upgrades into the first mortgage process through kind of standardized lending products and tools and standards that are going to make it cheaper and easier to include that kind of a funding for energy upgrades alongside traditional mortgage financing. And, at CPC Climate Capital, we're really focusing our efforts on the lenders that serve the low income and disadvantaged communities. We're investing 60% of our awarded funds in low income and disadvantaged communities and in affordable housing. And, we're really committed to working with the lenders that are working in those communities, working with housing finance agencies, working with community development financial institutions, to make sure that, we can get these funds into both traditional subsidized housing and also naturally occurring affordable housing as well. And, the billions with GGRF is an unprecedented and amazing investment, but it's still it's a drop in the bucket when it comes to the funding that's needed to improve the energy performance of homes in low and moderate income communities. And that's why it's really crucial that those funds are strategically leveraged in ways that transform the market and make high performance buildings more accessible to everyone. I mean, especially in disadvantaged communities that can really benefit the most from the health and comfort and affordability benefits that those high performance buildings provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, well, now we've opened up the cost of this, all of this, right? And so I've heard so much about the benefits and the potential. It seems like a no-brainer, but what's often prohibitive is the cost. Or the perception that the cost might be prohibitive. So Ted, let me turn to you. This is a prevailing perception that this upfront cost of installing heat pumps makes it difficult to make the switch. How do you talk about this? How do you explain the long-term savings and benefits to help people feel better about making this switch?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different realms we're working on right now. One is the affordability on individual homes switching over, with the burden on an individual homeowner to transition. And the incentives in the IRA and everything else that Lindsay had just talked about helps to support the transition to an individual home. What we're really looking at for this next iteration of decarbonization is neighborhood scale decarbonization. We have a lot of aging gas infrastructure that needs to be replaced due to its age. Most of it was put in 60, 70 years ago. It needs to be replaced. And that's a cost to ratepayers. A huge burden of cost is increasing ever so much on the gas system with that infrastructure replacement. And as we transition that to the next generation of energy, we're looking at thermal energy networks to replace that with low ambient temperature loops, geothermal loops, and even using our wastewater treatment systems as a source of heat for buildings in like downtown New York
Chicago. There's an enormous amount of opportunity to share thermal energy through the networks. And then in areas where we don't have, dense populations, the transition from gas systems onto the electric network. We can save all that money by not replacing those pipes and putting that money, a lot less money, into the electric infrastructure and electrify homes, businesses along the way. And that's the way we address the equity issue. For transitioning neighborhoods all together at once and doing it affordably in the rate structure of the utility or even a community-based funding mechanism, we can share those costs across the entire rate base and over a longer period. So that really reduces the burden on everybody in the transition for decarbonization.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I think we've explained how to address the cost of heat pumps, but there's many other misconceptions surrounding this technology. So I'm going to ask all of you to think about this, but Jason, I'll come to you first. In your work, I'm sure you come across all kinds of challenges, right? So what can you offer specific to the heat pump story that also could be relevant for technologies in other sectors? What can other sectors learn from you, from how to overcome some of these various misconceptions and challenges that will inevitably pop up for not just heat pumps, but anything that's going to be a disruptor, anything that's going to ultimately maybe disrupt traditional modes of practice, but ultimately result in better outcomes for individuals, families, communities, society, right? So talk to us a little bit about what you've come across and how you've overcome it.
Well, I mean, I think as the provider and developer of this equipment, I think it's incumbent upon us to sort of take the forefront in explaining how this technology works for the consumers, and I think we do a pretty good job at that. I did want to kind of tack on to Ted's response to what you were asking about the upfront cost, if I could.
Sure.
And I think it feeds right into what you're saying about the misconceptions. So I think you're right. A heat pump, if you look at it, it is slightly more expensive than an air conditioner. But it's important to remember that your heat pump is replacing two systems. It's replacing your air conditioner and your furnace. So that means the net upfront cost of your new heat pump, which again is a heating and a cooling system, is going to be similarly priced to a furnace and an air conditioner combination. So that's a big deal. People may not realize that, actually. But so when you consider that, in addition to the long-term savings and benefits, a heat pump makes really the most sense in many climates.
Okay. Anything else that you have come across in your work in terms of what would you like to correct? What's a myth that has been persistent that we can bust right here, right now?
I'll take one right off the bat.
Okay.
And Jason pointed it out. Cold climate performance. Modern heat pumps work in the cold. And the best benefit of the technology that Jason and Train are developing is that it works at very low load and does not rely on electric resistance backup. We commonly get that misconception of electrification is going to break the grid. And if we do everything very efficiently with technologies like Train is developing for cold climate and even variable speed heat pumps, they eliminate electric resistance backup heat almost entirely across the board in every climate. And that is the technology push that I'm just astounded to see in the last 5 years. So congrats, Jason.
Lindsay.
I don't know about misconceptions, but I feel like one of the things that is often ignored is just the key importance of getting highly efficient heat pump cooling into homes that need that and the benefits that can come from that. And Christy alluded to it earlier, but to get especially highly efficient, affordable cooling into the homes of low-income and disadvantaged communities is so important to keep people safe. And I think that we don't talk enough about the importance of getting high quality, efficient cooling into homes across the US, many of whom, have not needed it before, but need it now, or have always needed it and are going to need it and going to need to use it even more as our climate warms. So I think it's really important to focus on that and the benefits that can bring on the cooling side as well.
Thank you for that. Christy, what have you come across, especially in the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of people, think that it's very expensive, that it's only for like homeowners. I definitely have begun my journey of exploring like what are the options for renters. I still don't fully know what those options are, but I think, you know, for young people, like we don't even know if we can like purchase a home. So the, you know, the whole concept of like having a system like this, if you're just a renter and can't afford a home, I'd like to see more options and storytelling around renter friendly options and how we can give subsidies to people that can't afford a home. So I just wanted to say something around that, because I think a lot of this conversation is typically for an older generation, not necessarily people my age, and people my age have kind of said, well, what about for renters? Like, what are our options? And I was like, I honestly don't know. And I'm like, yeah, like right now, like, you know, I would love to have, you know, access to something like this as a renter. And I think, you know, if we could find more programs that can make that more accessible for people, I think people would get really excited and maybe even find, like I said, more jobs and opportunities to become a technician in this space, and then, you know, be able to teach their friends that they could also join these technician trainings, and that all of their, you know, apartments and homes and communities could benefit from this. I think that would be really exciting and interesting, and I hope gets added to the conversation soon too.
Well, you added it. Ted, please.
Christy, one thing Christy,
No.
sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I have a little bit of a delay here. Christy, I'd love to offer you, the switcheson.org has some renter resources for, you know, window heat pumps that can be purchased like an appliance, and even induction hobs that can go right over a gas stove if you have them. We're focused on plug-in appliances for renters because we've identified that as a huge hurdle. We've known it for a long time, but 120 volt plug-in stoves, appliances that renters can purchase are available on the market right now, and we're really trying to get those.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Need it, just like you.
And not just renters either, just anyone who can't move necessarily, or is, you know, where they've been and want to upgrade, but they still have the gas stoves. They wish they had electric, but here's an opportunity to go induction appliance, right? So yes, there's a lot of opportunity there. What was that website? The
switcheson.org. I'll put it in the chat for later.
Switcheson.org. That's great. Okay. Well, we're coming to a close, but before we, thank you so much for all your contributions. This was very informative. I learned a lot, and I know our audience has as well. And those that are tuning in, I'd love for each of you to just kind of give your final thoughts for, regardless of where their socioeconomic status, their ability to switch, their ability to purchase, what is kind of some good general advice on how viewers can make the best decisions for their home and energy needs? Obviously, upgrading where they can, but keeping that in mind that it's not possible for everyone. What is the best general advice each of you can give viewers? So can I start with Jason?
Well, okay. So honestly, I would start by visiting train.com to learn about the benefits of upgrading their heating and cooling systems. Our website, train.com, does a very good job in helping customers select the best heat pump for their specific needs. But beyond that, I would also ensure that I hire a contractor that is well versed and trained in all the new and innovative products that Trane Technologies has developed and delivered over the last few years. As you said earlier in one of your questions, we have made significant strides in heat pump technology, and I would say now more than ever, it's hard to stop a train.
That's great. Christy.
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell people, Green Jobs Board, we plan to post a lot more trainings and resources on our website. And, after participating in today's talk, definitely going to include the companies mentioned here and organizations to plug in with people, because it seems like the industry is booming to learn about the kinds of jobs people could be getting in this space. So I definitely know that I want to be at the forefront of telling those stories. So definitely check out, Green Jobs Board, because we plan to connect people to opportunities like this.
Awesome. Lindsay, final advice?
I mean, our audience is really kind of developers and the people who own kind of the rental buildings that renters are in. And I think that what we really want people to be mindful of when they're upgrading their systems is that it really is worth the investment in going high performance and going all electric and making sure you're doing efficiency and incorporating on-site renewables, because it creates higher quality housing. And ultimately, that's what we want to see people have access to, homes that are more comfortable and healthier and more affordable to run. And it's a really worthwhile investment that delivers a lot.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Ted, final word.
I'll encourage everybody to just research in their own homes transition, or even in this entire decarbonization space. There is a ton of information out there. For persons that want, like renters, we talked about with Christy, but homeowners looking in their transition, go to the switcheson.org. We run incentive and contractor finders through California and Washington State right now. But that information and the education will be useful throughout the country. And just understanding what to ask contractors. What do I want for a heat pump? What do I want for a heat pump water heater? Even induction stoves. The education is there. And then if you want to learn about policy, if you want to learn about the decarbonization trends, buildingdecarbonization.org, we have a ton of educational resources that can uplift your own learning in decarbonization space.
Super helpful. Thank you so much, Ted, Jason, Lindsay, Christy. You are all experts in this space, and thank you for your contributions to this conversation and for helping to educate our audiences that include developers, that include contractors, that include just those that are really passionate about transitioning to clean energy, and all the way to policymakers. So we're reaching a plethora of people, and we're really letting them know that this opportunity not only exists, but is only going to be accelerating from here. So thank you for the work you do and for your contributions today.
Thank you.
Appreciate the discussion.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
I'm thrilled to have with me Dwayne Cowan, who is the president of residential HVAC at Trane Technologies, for a fireside chat. Welcome, Dwayne. So I really want to get into this because we just heard from an incredible panel of experts on various misconceptions around heat pumps, and also the incredible potential and the enormous benefits that heat pumps pose. So why is there still some resistance to their adoption from your perspective? What do you see as the biggest barriers to the public really understanding and accepting heat pumps? And let's talk a little bit about how do we overcome those misconceptions so that we can really see widespread use of heat pumps?
I think you nailed the main challenge. The resistance really is likely from not knowing enough about heat pumps. Most people think about from a long time ago, 1950. It's changed much since then. Awareness is the key. Once homeowners really understand how much heat pumps can perform in the climates where they live, and in addition to the energy efficiency savings, plus the clean technology, I believe heat pumps will get more acceptance. And then I think we'll be able to scale this technology and become a more sustainable future for us overall. But to help build awareness, we provide our dealers and consumers with information to help them make the best decisions regarding heat pumps and climate solutions in general. Plus, we also want to train our dealers and our distributors so they understand the efficiencies and what's good for the consumer. We'll continue to innovate the ways we help build awareness in our customer base. We know the importance of breaking down the barriers for this. The other thing to think about, incentives. Really promote the incentives that are out there available for our consumers as well.
So you brought up incentives. Let's get into that a little bit more, right? So what are the incentives and the subsidies that you see as critical to making these more accessible to your consumers? And how can these be designed or improved more so that more homeowners can begin to adopt heat pumps?
Most effective programs are simple, easy for dealers and homeowners to understand. So we really need them to understand the programs first that are out there. And a combination of private and public collaboration that can help reduce upfront costs. That will set the homeowners up better to meet what they need to see the savings and get the rebates process for them as well. One thing we think about is we talked about having these programs available for them, but if you don't understand how to use those programs, it makes it very hard for them to feel like they're accessible to them. So that's something we need to work on. But the other thing I'm proud of is that even though there are promote programs out there, rebates out there, There's also, from our standpoint, our product is accessible for them anyway, even without the programs. But we do want to make sure that if there is a state money out there, that we have tools available to them to make it easier for them to understand what's available and take advantage of those so we can promote more heat pumps in the marketplace.
Okay, wonderful. So this is all very exciting. It looks like it's going to become more accessible to consumers if all goes according to plan. And that's really driven by, like you said, these private-public partnerships. And we count on the private sector to advance technologies. And so we've gotten heat pumps to where they are. But from your perspective, can you talk to us a little bit about any new technologies or innovations that you're really excited about, that you see on the horizon, that could make heat pumps even more efficient, even more appealing, even more affordable?
Yes, absolutely. So as we look into the opportunities in 2025, we'll be bringing a cold climate heat pump to our customers in 2025. And if you think about heat pumps, in a lot of cases, some people think that in extreme weather, it's tougher to use a heat pump. But with this cold climate heat pump, that'll provide more opportunities there. The design will be coming out in mid to late 2025. And with the accelerated manufacturing of cold climate heat pump technology can work efficiently all year round. And that's really efficient in high, or I would say I'm in Minneapolis today, so I told you I was here, extreme cold weather. So that will really help expand the use and efficiency of our units. But we also think that in many installations, an air conditioner furnace can be replaced by a single heat pump, which is also good for our consumers. The other part of this is around digital. We'll be using our cold climate heat pumps will be compatible with our advanced technologies around connected comfort solution, including our Train Link system. This is going to enable seamless integration of Train's comprehensive ecosystem of smart technologies. The one thing we want to make sure is that as we use these systems, they're very efficient and they create more value for our end customer, which is the consumer. So smart home technology allows for technicians and homeowners to easily control and monitor a system from anywhere, optimizing comfort settings and energy use, which is really positive for the team or for our consumers. Train's control product, Train Link, also seamlessly connects to our HVAC system. So it's making installation straightforward for technicians, which spares dealers and our consumers extensive retrofit concerns.
All right. Well, these technologies, I feel like, are very attractive to potential new hires for technicians, for engineers that are looking to be working on the advent of technology and, want to be in an exciting sector that has so much opportunity to be realized. And in the near future, it's already here. And there's even, based on what you're saying, there's a lot of opportunity to be realized quickly. So how does Train think about encouraging more of the workforce to enter this space? And not just Train necessarily, but the sector more broadly.
So part of our recruiting talent for our industry and Train Technology is ensuring we are a great place to work. And that starts with our culture, right? We feel that our culture really creates this uplifting and inclusive environment, which is very important for Train. We're also committed to continuously learn about open dialogue. So we have ERGs that we create educational programs, and our CEO hosts a day of understanding so we can better understand that people who work within our organization. We also have a program for veterans. We call it the Trade Warriors. And really, it's an 8-week program that provides more than 300 hours of hands-on HVAC training for active military individuals within 6 months of separation or veterans. And the goal is to employ as many many military people in HVAC as possible. Since 2021, we've trained 275, and 80% of those are still working with us in the HVAC industry. So we want to continue to grow that. Obviously, we want to get that number up higher. There's a lot of people coming out of the military that we think are very suited well for our dealers, and want to continue to work with that. The other thing we think about is women, they're underrepresented in the HVAC industry. So we want to team up with some of the organizations, women in manufacturing and women in HVACR, to really drive more women into this area. This is something that we really think highly of. We think is important because we want to open our industry up for all. And by opening our industry of all, it opens us as an organization up to more talent, because we think we have the most diverse talent, the most inclusive talent, and we will be one of the best performing in our industry. And so we look at this daily. We do a lot of work with our teams to really drive new initiatives that attract talent to our industry. So we want to continue to do that. And I think it's something that's important for us as we continue to try to innovate for a more sustainable future.
Well, innovation always encourages the best of the best to show up, right? Because that's exciting. So I think you've hit the nail on the head on how to ensure Trane continues to get some of the best graduates in the spaces that are going to just continue to further accelerate the technologies and make heat pumps accessible to an even wider audience, because we know we need it. We need to disrupt traditional heating and cooling. This is the future that's aligned to the reality of the planet warming. And so how do we cut carbon emissions with technology? Heat pumps, from what we've learned today, is definitely one incredible solution. So thank you for your role in this and your work in this. Thank you to Trane Technologies for supporting this conversation. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you to Senator Martin Heinrich for your opening remarks. And with that, thank you, Dwayne Cowan, especially for being my fireside chat at the end of this. With that, I close this webinar today.
Thank you.